podcast about fake news. I'm Beth.
And I'm Kelly.
Hey, Kelly. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Beth?
I am doing fantastic. Now, you said in the last episode that you would be really great if you could read the Mueller report.
I think I did say that, and I am really excited that the Mueller report is out. I've read pieces of it. I have not gotten through the whole thing yet. How about you?
No, I have not. I have not read it in its entirety. I think I've read some roundups. I've watched some Trevor Noah clips for sure. I did see a really, really funny meme about, it was referencing how, William Barr, Attorney General Barr, had taken the Mueller report and made it into the best possible light,
Yes.
And it was that it was a redaction of the first paragraph of A Tale of Two Cities. And it was
I did see this one. Yeah.
It was so funny the way they did it. I was just laughing so hard. That was some comedic genius right there.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. So it's out.
It is. And I mean, it's exciting in the most depressing way.
Here's the thing. I'm going to go ahead and side with Trump and say I'm fucked. It just is like we're all fucked.
Yeah. No, I mean, yes and no. I mean, we are at this precipice and it kind of just depends on where the country goes now. I mean, I don't know if we're going to get into this whole conversation about indictment or not indictment. We can have that conversation, but I do fall strongly on one side.
I just feel like, I'm a big Elizabeth Warren fan, and that is not going to be a secret at all.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I'm in that sisterhood boat.
I am already volunteering for her campaign. I'm already doing whatever I can do to help her win the primary because I think she is amazing. And when I think about having her as president and actually having some of the policies that she is putting forth in her proposals, I'm scared to hope that is a reality that we can be back into, because our reality now is we're fucked. I mean, it's not a good reality that we're living in right now.
I mean, the thing that they always say is that it's always darkest before it's dawn. And sometimes when you're at the very fucking bottom, there's no way to go but up. So I am very focused on the 2020 election, but I am just as focused on get this motherfucker impeached right fucking now.
Are we living under a bridge right now?
There are times when I think I might be living in cloud 9 because I'm optimistic about the future. And I don't know why I still feel that way. But I do know some people who live under a bridge. Do you want to talk about them?
Yes, let's talk about these bridge dwellers.
Let's talk about a specific type of bridge dweller. What do you say we talk about the purebred Russian bridge dweller? Would you like to talk about them?
Yeah, let's do it. So we're talking about trolls, right?
That's right.
This is actually funny because it has really come like full circle. And Elizabeth and I did an episode way back when we were babies about we called it when sock puppets go bad. And it was when we very first had found out about the Russian ad buy on Facebook. Right. And in that episode, I even mentioned that Facebook had provided Robert Mueller's team with information about the ad buys that Russia did. Facebook had potentially given his team more information than he had even provided to Congress. And so when the report came out, it did come out that the IRA had purchased 3,000 political ads on Facebook and maintained several hundred accounts attempting to influence the perspectives of Americans during the 2016 elections.
Right.
So,
and by the IRA, do you mean the Irish Republican Army?
No, I do not.
Do you mean an investment retirement account?
No, I do not.
Is it better than any of those things?
It's so funny because when I was listening to that episode, I kept like stumbling over remembering what the IRA stands for. And now I'm like, oh yeah, the IRA, the Internet Research Agency, duh. Like, who doesn't know about the Internet Research Agency in Russia?
Yeah.
Russia's
who doesn't know about that IRA?
The IRA. Like, that's exactly what I think of when I hear IRA, Internet Research Agency, Russian troll farm. And that was the first time we had heard of it, or people had really heard of it. It was this big revelation. So I feel like we're really coming full circle on this topic here. But what did you find out, Kelly? What is a troll? Let's give some people who maybe, I mean, for crying out loud, I co-hosted that podcast and I still had to go back and listen to it to remember it. So
we can't remember everything. Okay, so I mean, let's just start at the top. So Wikipedia says that a troll is someone who posts inflammatory, extraneous, or off-topic messages in an online community, such as an online discussion forum, chat room, or blog, with the intent of provoking readers into an emotional response of otherwise disrupting normal on-topic discussion.
Okay. And the report did find that there's evidence of dozens of political rallies in the U.S. that were organized via Facebook and Twitter by the IRA. And again, about the political ad buys. So there was definitely this troll farm in Russia, very active, sowing discourse for the 2016 election.
Right. And just last October is when Twitter released, they did a huge dump of 10 million tweets, 9 million of which were from the Internet Research Agency, the IRA, coming from nearly 4,000 accounts, most filled with anti-Clinton rhetoric, conspiracy theories, and extreme right-wing talking points. Although it should be noted, they are not all always extreme right-wing. They will just be the extreme of either side so that they can sow discord in any situation.
Right, because like we were talking about in our last episode, that guy that emulated the Russian trolls for the Democratic Party, it's really about getting infighting going. It's not about Democrats fighting Republicans. It's about Republicans fighting Republicans and Democrats fighting Democrats. And that's why one of the reasons why they focused on having Bernie Sanders supporters not support Clinton. That was the goal.
Right.
So speaking of Twitter, we always hear about Twitter bots. So is there a difference, Kelly, between a bot and a troll?
There is. So the one thing I would bring up is that, I don't know if you heard about this, Beth, but Trump met with Jack Dorsey from Twitter this week. And one of his questions is why his Twitter followers suddenly went down recently. And Jack Dorsey had to also explain to Donald Trump what bots are and why that had taken his numbers down so much was because he had thousands upon thousands, if not over 1 million bots that were following him.
Oh.
And that those are not real people. So the difference between a troll and a bot is ultimately that the troll is a real person, whereas bots are automated. And the two types of accounts they're very exclusive. I mean, they're not like each other, but a troll can still use a bot.
Right.
Because they can amplify their messages and put out multiple messages a day, or they can look for key target phrases and then have a response already ready to go. You see bots a lot on Reddit. You see bots a lot on Twitter. I don't see them a lot on Facebook, but I'm also not on a lot of pages where I think I would see them.
Yeah, but they are definitely out there, and it's definitely, you're right, something that a troll can use to amplify. And yeah, I mean, why not use the two nefarious things together? Of course.
Yeah.
And oh, poor Donald, your numbers went down. That must have been so hard for him.
I know. He's such a tool. He thinks that it would be over 100 million if it wasn't for the bots on Twitter, or if it wasn't for them taking away all of his followers, he thinks he would have over 100 million. And it had to be explained to him that the reason he only has around 70 million is because of the bots.
And about half of those are people who hate him and only follow him to tell him what a dipwad he is.
Oh, I absolutely do know that, because that's why my mother follows him, and I see her. Yeah, I see my mother's fucking mentions every time I go onto Twitter, and it makes me so happy. Like, she's out there fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
I think her hashtag that she uses for him every time is fucking moron.
Oh, nice. Nice.
If that just gives you a little sense of the stock I come from.
So that's the only reason I actually created a Twitter account, was so I could follow him and tell him what a moron he is. So, and now though, I just use the podcast Twitter account for that.
Yeah, honestly, she joined for the same reason. Yeah. I helped set up her account just so she could get on there and actually yell at him if she just thinks he's terrible.
Yeah, I would think probably at least half of those 70 million are people who follow just.
They've got to be. I barely
or journalists or,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I never see anyone. Every once in a while, I'll see like a couple of messages in between that are approving of the things he's saying, but so many of them are just like, you are the stupidest person on the world. Yeah. You need to be impeached. You are a fucking idiot. Just everything that anyone has ever said about Donald Trump is what they say on Twitter.
Yeah, and then I also see the ones that are supportive are obviously the bots, and it's like the rainbows and the American flags and all the, and you're just like, right. Okay, yeah, bot, okay. So it's funny because when Elizabeth and I did that episode back, 50 years ago, we were talking about how trolls, must be like just these people with soulless, just not good people, right? But it turns out they're actually just maybe kind of people who needed a job.
Right.
And who maybe weren't even political.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what it seems like. And it seems like it's that way when you can look back through history, you see a lot of that anyway, is that, you're much more likely to get willing soldiers when you have high unemployment and you have a lot of young men.
It's a plug for a living wage.
So that sure. I mean, universal basic income,
yeah.
There's people who definitely would subscribe to that. I don't know. I know that when you have bored, unemployed young men, and I say young men because it is typically young men, but in history, the more bored, unemployed young men you have, the more likely it is that you're going to have violence in your community, violence in your area, or you're going to have someone in a leadership position who's going to use their youth to do something for himself, usually use his power to do something for himself.
So do you want to tell us about this former troll who talked about his job, and what was this from the PRI?
No, this is from an article from the New York Times by Neil McFarquhar. The article is called Inside the Russian Troll Factory, Zombies and a Breakneck Pace. And he spoke with one former troll. And I do recommend the article. The article talks to several former workers at the IRA, or they intimate that it's the IRA. I don't know that they actually name it in the New York Times article, but it is very similar. It is a Russian troll farm.
I feel like how instead of saying hooker or prostitute, it's better to say sex worker. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're getting to the point where instead of troll, we're going to have to be like disinformation worker.
Yeah, a disinformation seeder, maybe? Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the word troll should be really used for the actual people that are making this happen, like the Russian chef guy. Like he's the troll.
Yeah, it gets hard because you get really desensitized to it, sort of like when people just go around calling everything a bot.
Right.
And you're like, well, I know that person isn't really a bot. So the next time you see it, you believe it a little less and a little less and a little less until you're just like, whatever, all of this, I don't believe any of it anymore.
Right.
And so, you have to deal with that sort of, sometimes you do have to change the name just to get people to remember how serious it is. Just like Michelle McNamara changed the East Area Rapist and the Visalia Ransacker to the Golden State Killer, because having one name and making that name show what he fucking did made it a lot more, people took and paid attention more.
Yes.
So, but anyways, the former troll was talking about his job and how it changed the way he viewed the world. And he said, with only a high school education, Sergey was thrilled to discover that he could earn good money. He said he was actually handed cash in an envelope for part of his weekly salary without much effort. I was 25 years old and I knew nothing about politics, he said. Working in a room with about 40 other people, he received a stream of blog posts by other agency writers. His job was to add comments and to share the posts on other social media platforms. He said everyone had a quota of at least 80 comments and 20 shares a day. And he said the main idea was to work on people's thinking, to raise patriotism among the Russian people, and to portray the U.S. negatively.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing is, it's not as though it's just we want to fuck with U.S. elections.
Right.
This is really almost an underground Cold War that's happening right now. And it's a Cold War that they're winning because we don't have American troll farms where we're meddling in Russian elections. Now, there's a lot to be said about certain secret agencies and CIAs and, but those things have always existed. And it's not like the KGB has gone away. They just renamed themselves.
Right.
And that's where Putin came from in the first place. So, this is something that they're doing really well because they have found this to be effective, but it is propaganda at the end of the day.
Sure. And
it's not,
it's almost funny because from his point of view, he's probably not thinking I'm making a difference and I'm affecting the US election, but he was planting those seeds. And that's where propaganda grows from, is all these seeds are planted all over and people keep seeing them time and time again. I mean, it's almost like how they say with the business, like somebody has to see your business 7 times before they remember it, or they have to see 7 touches of something before they, internalize it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with the propaganda. Like if you see something repeated over and over again in different areas and maybe said a little bit differently, you're going to start to internalize it and think that that's true or that that's a truth.
Well, that brings us to a really good part of this, which is one of their biggest propaganda tools that they use all the time is this thing called demotivators. And that was something that you introduced me to. If you want to take a moment to sort of explain what demotivators are.
Yeah, well, let's tell them how we got there because this is really cool. So this Russian journalist, Ludmila, no, I think it's Savchuk, she went undercover in the IRA after she noticed that like websites and social media accounts attacking local opposition activists in her hometown of St. Petersburg with very similar comments and with a coordination that she had never seen before. And so she went to work for the IRA to figure out what was going on. And she only worked there for like 2.5 months. And then she started publishing articles about it. And she saw hundreds of young Russians working in these 12-hour shifts in departments like social media seeders and demotivators. So I looked into what is a demotivator. And it's Russian internet memes. And the images are meant as visuals to accompany a Russian troll posting on social media and blogs. And, they're not like super smart or clever. And just like most of the memes that we see every day, they're not based in fact either.
What do you mean? I learn all my American history from memes, Beth. Is that wrong?
So
Are you saying that those aren't facts?
I say beware the meme. Yes, you can laugh at them, but that's about it. So actually there's this podcast called The Brain Food Show. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't.
It looks kind of interesting. Not that, if you only have time for one podcast, ours first, theirs second.
That's right.
But they have this thing called Today I Found Out and Feed Your Brain. And basically, like, they did some research. This is back in 2010 that they posted this. It's the origins of the demotivator meme. So there is a company called Despair Inc. Now, before them was a company called Successories. And do you remember those motivational posters that people would hang in their offices? Okay, so that was what it started. And Despair Inc. came along to spoof these motivational posters. Okay. They wanted something that would be office friendly and artsy, but funny. Okay. And guess who originally popularized these memes?
Oh, I don't know who.
4chan.
Oh, what a fucking surprise.
4chan.
I thought it was going to be somebody awesome. But no. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
So I started scrolling down through some of these and I'm like, oh, I've seen that. Oh, I've seen that. Oh, I've seen that. So there's like the one with the little girl looking at the camera, like all sly, and behind her, the house is burning. And it says, Girl Scouts, because next time you'll just buy the damn cookies.
Yes.
That's a demotivator.
Yeah.
That is what it is. My favorite one is, it's on here. It says, Angry Cookie, I will kill your whole goddamn family. And it's this chocolate chip cookie that it's just the way that the chocolate chips are and the crack of the cookie. It really looks like this cookie is very angry. It just made me laugh. But some of them are freaking hilarious. One of them, this is a great one. It's a picture of a Fox News commentator. And it says, Americans, this is like on the screen, Americans election HQ, Obama/Biden, Osama bin Laden. Coincidence? And then it says, conspiracy theories. You can trust Fox News to deliver every time. So I feel like some of these are, they're not bad, right?
Right.
And then some of them are so fucking horrible that you're like, oh. Like there's another one of a guy, like a SWAT team member holding a gun and a child in front of him. And he's probably rescuing him in real life and running with him. And it says, human shield for those times when Kevlar just isn't enough.
Oh,
gross. Gross. So I had a lot of emotions reading through these because some of them I was like, that's hilarious. And then I'd be like, oh, that's bad. Oh, no, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. But that is where they started from, I guess. And then Russia was like, yeah. So
you sent me one in particular that you found that you had to go research yourself after seeing it on the Russian demotivator. Do you want to talk about that one?
So let me tell you about this, because there's another article by PRI called A Guide to the Russian Demotivator Memes. And this talks about how they use them, basically. And it has you can scroll through a bunch of their memes that they've made. And I was scrolling through some of them, and one of them caught my eye. And it says, well, let me tell you what it is first. It's a picture of Michelle Obama standing under a sign that says colored, with a white person standing under a sign that says white. And
as you do.
And there's a saying in Russian, which has been translated to, and they say there's no racism in the US. So I saw that and I was like, okay, this picture looks real, but she has got to be like, this has got to be like a museum or something. Like, This isn't being represented correctly. So I Google searched the image, and it came up that she was on a tour at the Brown versus Board National Historic Site. And there's an article by Jezebel, and it's labeled the most poignant photo of Michelle Obama you've ever seen. And it's her and the chief of interpretation and education. Her name is Stephanie. And it says they mirror the past of segregation in a photo released by the White House. So this was like an official White House photo that was taken and released. And one of the things that struck me, and I gave you a screenshot of my Google search, is that here you have this Russian meme where they're saying that we're still living in a society where whites and coloreds are separated, right?
Right.
Guess who else ran with this theme of discourse? You're never going to guess.
I mean, Fox News?
InfoWars.
Shocking.
The Daily Sheeple.
Oh, that sounds like a legit news site. I don't know what's wrong with you, Beth.
DC Clothesline. It's like, oh, look at the conservative news following the Russians' lead. Like, seriously. And this one, the one by InfoWars, of course, is ridiculous. It says, oh, hell no, Roger Stone. If Hillary's too sick, the DNC will replace her with Michelle Obama. Like, what the fuck is he even talking about? And then it says...
Yeah, that's exactly how elections work. Thanks, Roger Stone.
Yeah. At a time when race relations in this country have been manufactured to regress back to civil rights days, enter Michelle Obama, first Black woman president. This is from September 14th of 2016. I mean, this is just like, oh my gosh. So, yeah, that's what I found.
That's ridiculous. So we were talking about Savchuk.
Yeah.
The woman who went undercover for 2.5 months inside the Internet Agency or Internet Research Agency.
Yes.
One of the things that I wanted to mention was that what she found out were that not only were the troll farms a project of the Kremlin, but they were also run by a man called Evgeny Prigozhin, who is also known as Putin's chef.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Prigozhin was placed under U.S. sanctions last year for his role in the interference in the 2016 elections. But despite the fact that he is under sanctions by our government, his contracts with the Russian government have continued to grow. While Savchuk has been blocked on Facebook after trolls attacked her account after her report came out, and she flew to DC to talk to government officials about what she learned.
Wow.
Yeah. So not only has she been isolated online and made to feel like what she did wasn't important, but the person who was found guilty of wrongdoing and indicted for wrongdoing and sanctions placed against him for wrongdoing is being celebrated in her home country. Yeah. And so, of course, when something like that happens, it might affect you emotionally and mentally. And the backlash has taken a toll on her mental health. And while she says she doesn't regret taking the story, she is not optimistic that things will change. And she has suffered a breakdown during the time since these stories were originally published. Yeah. It's, we forget that journalists take a lot on when they go to do these stories. I mean, just recently in Northern Ireland, there was a young journalist who was amazing by all accounts, who was doing a story on a riot in Derry and was shot and killed.
Oh no.
And that's something that journalists face all the time. And it's just very sad, the things that you will go through to get a story and make sure people know the truth, and to uncover all this and have people not care is got to be really tough.
We care.
We do care.
And I think that it's one of those things where you never know where your work is going to pay off or when. And yeah. I feel that way all the time about this podcast. But there was a video on the article that you had found on PRI. The article is called "The Trolls Are Winning," says Russian Troll Hunter. And there's a little video clip about, it kind of walks through what the article says, and it tells her story. Definitely very interesting, and definitely worth the 5 minutes to listen to it.
Yeah, for sure. She's a very interesting person.
Yeah. And you know what? She's young, and she has got a long life ahead of her, and hopefully will continue to do good. So Hopefully we'll all get out of
fingers
this.
crossed.
Yeah, hopefully we'll all get out of this. So, Kelly, how can you spot a Russian troll?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Beth. There is actually a really good article on Medium that has a list that helps you figure this all out. It was created by Digital Forensic Research Lab, and they go through a bunch of different things. I'm just going to go through a few because I feel like a few, and then go check out the article because really the article has a much better list. But, it says one of the things you want to look for is not just being political, but being hyper partisan. And not just necessarily alt-right. Like I said before, they might be like an extreme Black Lives Matter proponent on their social media page.
Right.
So look for that sort of, they're either one extreme or the other. They're not going to be someone who's a centrist or, they're like a conservative, but I'm only fiscally conservative. I still believe in abortion and women's rights and feminism. That is not going to be your troll farmer there.
Right.
Also, another good thing to look for is the Russian language does not have the article of speech a or the. So look for those things to maybe be used incorrectly. For example, they had a tweet quote that said, "With Hillary in charge, America will burn in flames of a shame. Don't let this happen." And flames of a shame is not, it would maybe be flames of shame, but it's still a very awkward sentence.
Right.
And so you see that those letters or the word the is put in the wrong place and it just feels not right. You also want to look at like how something is phrased. So maybe they're trying to be an English speaker.
Mm-hmm.
They appear to be like, they'll be like, have GOP in their name, or they'll be like the Patriot or something like that. And they'll have American flags, but then their sentences will sound something like, "Why I need a credit card, what you think this cash is for." And, it's a little bit obvious that maybe English isn't their first language.
I would say if everything is spelled correctly, that's probably a clue that it could be a troll. Most of us just, we're just typing and letting autocorrect take over. So
see, you say that, but there were some of those demotivators from the Russian memes that they clearly said at the bottom, spelling and grammar has been corrected from the original Russian meme.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. In Russian, they're making spelling mistakes. But in English, they're probably going to look up the words to make sure they spell them right.
That's true. That's fair. Yeah. That's a fair point. But one thing the article on Medium did point out is that you want to look for the narrative, because he did say, make sure, or they, sorry, not a him, they did say that, you want to look at it and say, okay, but there are still going to be Russian people who are online.
Right.
There are still plenty of Russian people who speak English who are on Twitter. They have opinions. That's fine. But you really want to be looking for the narrative. So just because someone's commenting doesn't mean it's a troll. Look for the deeper narrative. So like, have they posted 5 times and their example was Ukrainian Nazi coup.
Okay.
And the original article has tons of other terms and phrases that you can look for in their Twitter profile. Mm-hmm. And if they're posting on those things multiple times, like, occupation of Syria or, things that are against Russian government or pro-Russian government, those are more likely to be Russian troll accounts than say, someone who just makes one offhand comment, but their grammar isn't right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there are actual Russians on Twitter who aren't trolls.
That's right.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, there are sometimes American men who are on Twitter as well who also aren't trolls. They don't have to live in a troll farm in America. They just exist, usually in their mother's basement.
Nice. Yeah. So interesting. It's definitely come full circle. I do remember when doing the research for the original episode about the, Facebook ad by Russians and everything, it still felt very surreal and like, could this be true? And is this really happening? Like, I remember just so much of it thinking like, gosh, I hope that we're not making a mistake, by recording this episode. And it was all true.
Yeah, I mean, it feels very conspiracy theory. You don't want to believe that this could possibly be the case, but then you get to the point where you're like, oh shit. Oh yeah, okay, all right. Even the FBI is saying, yeah, this is something that
it's all true. All of it. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I can't. It's turtles all the way down, Beth. It's just turtles all the way down. I can't even deal with it anymore.
I just wonder too, because at the time, we were just finding out some of these things, and now it's like, okay, now we know even more. And I still wonder, like, what's behind that curtain? Like, what else is still there that we don't know or don't understand yet?
Yeah, what's under the redactions?
Yeah, right. Oh gosh, I'm scared a little bit to even know.
I want to know what's going to happen with the 10 other indictments or the 10 other investigations that he has been contributing to. I think we've only heard from 4 of them. So it's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be something that happens with the state of New York bringing their own lawsuit. I think that there are going to be other investigations that are going to play a huge part in the next year. Yeah. But I'd like to see if we can, maybe skedaddle him on out the door before then.
I don't know.
I mean, he can be under investigation and be indicted and not be in office. Yeah. He can just, get the hell out of there.
Yeah, I feel like in a couple of years, we're going to look back and we're going to know so much more. And we're going to go, I can't believe that this man was literally, in charge of our country and at the same time was doing all of these things. And it's scary to have that knowledge of like, we can almost see behind the curtain to see what he's been doing, but he's still in charge. And then when you hear people, supporting him, it boggles my mind. It really boggles my mind.
You know what? It doesn't even boggle my mind anymore because I feel like they live their lives in this sort of trolldom of, we got one over on you. We're better than you. We are obviously smarter than you. And they've never, most of the people I know who are still Trump supporters, they're like that. They're those people who are never going to let it go anyway.
Yeah.
And, if you're not a racist and you're still supporting him, you're still saying, well, I support racism. And so you are actually a racist. You might not be as racist as the guy sitting in his KKK robes, but that doesn't make you not a racist.
Right. It's just sad though that like those are our neighbors and like those are the people that are our countrymen. I've been watching The Americans, so like I've been seeing. I didn't watch it when it came out. Like, so I'm watching it now.
I've never seen it. My husband watched the entire series and he would just watch it when I wasn't around. I didn't actually dislike it.
Oh, Kelly, you should watch it.
Didn't get into it.
It's amazing.
You know what? I'm so far behind in everything that I don't know that I'm going to get. I know that I've heard it's very good. I just don't know that I'm ever going to get there, especially since he ruined a lot of it for me because I watched the bits and pieces and he'd be like, this is what's going on now. And I'm like, well, probably not going to watch this now. But that's okay.
Speaking of spoilers, people were talking, I saw somebody, an article about, people are trying to talk about like who they think is going to die in the next Game of Thrones.
Everybody.
And that's what I was thinking. I was like, we might as well just actually say, who do we think is going to live? Because it would be a shorter list.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to fucking die.
I got that.
I know that they're not all going to really die, but seriously.
I got that feeling last week. I was like, I don't know if I can handle this. Like, how many of these characters are going to die?
Oh, man. There are people I know who are going to die that I'm really upset about, and they're such minor characters. Like, they gave a lot of airtime to a lot of people last week, and I'm like, and you're putting a bunch, and I don't know why we're on this Game of Thrones tangent, but I'm gonna go with it for right now. You're putting all of your most defenseless people in the fucking crypt. What is that?
I know, what is going on with the crypt thing, man?
What does the Night King do? He snaps his fingers and fucking resurrects the dead. That means fucking all those dead people in that goddamn crypt are gonna fucking come to life and start killing people, and I'm not down with it. I'm not down with that shit.
Oh, all right. Well, obviously we're done talking about trolls.
Yeah. Everyone's gonna fucking die on Game of Thrones, guys. There's gonna be like one dragon and one survivor. And honestly, I hope it's Tyrion just riding away on a dragon at the end of that fucking show. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if that's how it ended. I'm just saying.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. All right.
Are you ready to get to our jams of the week?
Let's do it. Let's jam it up.
Okay.
And I think it's your turn to go first.
I think you're right. So I chose for my my jam of the week. I tried to fit it kind of into this narrative. I know this doesn't work that well because it's not actually the same thing, but someone who I would consider a troll is someone like David Duke.
Yeah.
And Don Black, who was just this terrible, terrible person. He was a white supremacist, or he still is a white supremacist. He founded Stormfront. He was a Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. And he was a member of the American Nazi Party. He has a son named Derek Black. And they used to do a talk show together, like a radio talk show.
Yeah.
For years. And Derek Black, a couple of years ago, came out of white supremacy, like left the white supremacist movement and wrote a book with a guy named Eli Saslow called Rising Out of Hatred, The Awakening of a Former White Nationalist. And in the book, he sort of tells his story of how he grew up, how he went to college, how his mind was expanded by going to college and meeting people of other races, having friends of other religions, dating, and realizing that we really are almost all the same.
Right.
The thing it really brought home to me between this and another book I read called Education, about another young girl who is homeschooled at home by an extremist. It really brings home to me that the way your mind is changed is not online through social media. It's not through a meme. It's not through a troll farm. It's not through internet comments. It is always by a lived experience and by people being kind to each other, even when you don't have to be. You know, there's a lot of people who will say, well, why do I have to give my emotional labor to racists? And while I understand what they're saying, and while I also hate racism, the reason you kind of have to do it is because if you are always standing across from each other yelling at one another, neither one of you ever listens.
That's what Christian Picciolini would always says is hug a Nazi.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would love to punch a Nazi. I feel like there is no one better that deserves to be punched. But at the end of the day, if I punch them, do they then respect my side?
Nope.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah. I've heard his story on a couple of podcasts. It's very interesting, very moving how he came to realize and how deep he was in that movement too.
Oh, huge. He was supposed to be the next leader of the white supremacy movement. And make no mistake, this book is not that old. He is talking about, toward the end, he is talking about Donald Trump's rise to the presidency and how the white supremacist movement took that as, this is our success. We absolutely claim this. We know that he is absolutely going to be on the side of white supremacy. He is going to take our country back from the immigrants and the blacks who have taken this land from us.
I think one of the saddest things about his story, and I guess it's just inevitable, but the fact that his father disowned him, basically doesn't speak to him anymore.
Oh, his mother too.
Because he left the movement. And it's like, oh, wow, really? Like,
yeah.
I mean, this is like, they're like, you're dead to us because you don't believe in racism anymore.
Yeah. And I actually want to say, I might be wrong. I've read this book a while back.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably been close to a year, but I want to say that his mother might have been more angry than his father.
Oh,
like
wow.
His father has talked to him a couple of times, but his mother, I don't think she ever has. Now, the thing to know about his mother is his mother was married to David Duke. David Duke is his godfather. His father was friends with David Duke even after he married his ex-wife. Like the white supremacist movement is very incestuous. And so that David Duke was this guy's when I say that he was the next leader, like he had been groomed since he was a child. He started a child's website for young budding white supremacists that was like a huge internet forum and was very successful. And he lived in the closet with this for years and didn't tell all of the people around him in his college life who he was while he was still on the weekends recording this talk show with his dad.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Good one. Definitely a good book for sure. Well, I have a light jam of the week to end us on.
Yay!
I've been hearing this song lately, and it's called Best Friend by Sophie Tucker. And it came out in 2017, but I don't know, they've just been playing it a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
I think just because it's getting close to summer, and this is a really good summer song. But it's got this very, very good beat in it. And it was on a commercial for the Apple iPhone X. So you've probably heard it. If you hear it and you're like, oh, it's that song.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where it kind of gets stuck in your head a little bit is from that. But definitely a very fun little cute song that has been making me dance all over my kitchen.
Oh, nice. We all need songs like that.
Yeah, definitely need to be dancing in our kitchens right now, especially with the fact that the Mueller report is out.
Yes.
So.
For sure.
Doing the little dance. All right, lady. Well, we are going to be back in 2 weeks with a new episode.
That's right.
And until then, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Podcast Fake News, or you can email us podcastfakenews@gmail.com. You can go check out our blog at podcastfakenews.com.
That's right. That's where we put up our blog.
Yeah. And all the pictures, you'll be able to see everything that we were talking about.
All of our sources.
Yeah. And feel free to, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, help other people find us. Anything else before we go, my dear?
I don't think so. We're planning a pretty special episode for next time. So make sure you take a listen next time as well. And until then,
spread jam.
Not lies.